I'm Scott Boehm. They called me the Old Farmer. Today I will be doing a little palavering that's a bit outside of what I usually do. What would you say if I can demonstrate that there is no conflict between the age of the world found in the Bible and what scientists claim to be the age of the world and the universe? Let me state this as not a theology lesson. Instead, I will be explaining that there appears to be no conflict between scientists and the Bible. I hope you'll stay with me as I explain that this conflict is a false conflict based upon an honest mistranslation of the Bible. I feel farmers are scientists that deal with land and with weather, plus a whole host of things that influences farming. In reality, farmers are applied physicists and applied engineers. Along with the nuts and bolts of understanding the physical is faith. Many farmers have traditional Bible faith, but at the minimum, there is a faith in nature. A farmer plants a seed or raises animals. It may not be 100% successful, but enough so that there is a return on investment in time. If we look to the Bible, there are instructions on how to farm. These instructions are important to having good results. The better farms tend to follow to some degree these instructions. If they do not, the land will become barren within a few years or within decades. Where the problem really flares its ugly head, between strong believing Christians and everyone else, is the beginning of the Bible. It does not look like it coincides with scientific fact, but maybe we're looking at things in a way that was not intended by the accredited author, Moses, and his ghostwriter, God. What I think, and this is my opinion, is that we're getting tangled up with the translations of specific words and the structure of the Bible itself. We don't have anyone speaking these old languages, and the translators are doing the best they can. There are also strong traditions that have strongly influenced the structure of the Bible. I could give many examples of how our faith, those who follow the Judeo-Christian faith, are thinking one thing and the Bible is actually saying something else. The easiest examples are the many denominations of Christianity and the different movements of the Jewish faith. The Bible says God's days are 1,000 years to us, so it appears the start of Genesis happened roughly 12,000 years ago. That is, if 1,000 years to one day for God is a hard fact. If it's really some Kentucky windage given as an example, then things will settle out a bit differently. First of all, when historical facts can be referenced against the Bible is often showing the event, but with a different date than that of what scientists show. You must remember, the Bible is not a history book. It's a story of God and His love for mankind. It is a very focused expression, and things outside of this focus is ignored. The Bible is talking about time in thousands of years, and scientists are talking about time in billions of years. Could Christians be building their faith on false beliefs? Could scientists be way off on their calibration of things? Let's think of things from a different point of view. Could Bible believers and scientists both be right? Let's look at Genesis, or Bereshit, as the Jewish people call the first book in the Bible. I'm going to use the King James Version for two reasons. First, it's a bit more poetic in its telling, and second, most people are familiar with the structure in King James. I'm using Bible Gateway for the verses. That means I can do a cut and paste. Remember, there are different versions of the King James Bible.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and the darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day.
This is pretty much what both Jews and Christians recognize as the first verses of the Bible. But about 20 years ago, I picked up the Tanakh. Think of it as the Jewish Bible. It's published by the Jewish Publication Society in Philadelphia and Jerusalem. When I wish to reference the Old Testament, I go to the Tanakh. This way, I see the words as it was written before Jesus was added to the Testaments. And I see things with a different perspective. In Bible study groups, when someone quotes a verse from the Old Testament, I bring out my Tanakh and read how it is written originally. There are subtle differences. This is how the Tanakh sees the first few verses.
1. In the beginning of God's creation of the heavens and the earth. 2. Now the earth was astonishingly empty, and the darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the water. 3. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. 4. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God separated between the light and between the darkness. 5. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And it was evening, and it was morning, one day.
I got this version of Bereshit from Sofar.org, and it matches with the Jewish Publication Society's Tanakh. In a way it is told, we see a subtle difference, don't we? Now let's look at another rendition of these first words from Chabad.org. This appears to be an older translation of Genesis, or Bereshit.
Genesis, Bereshit. 1. In the beginning of God's creation of the heavens and the earth. 2. Now the earth was astonishingly empty, and the darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the water. 3. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. 4. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God separated between the light and between the darkness. 5. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And it was evening, and it was morning, one day.
In this older translation, we see things a little bit differently than found in the King James Version and the Jewish Publication Society's version. Genesis is believed to be written somewhere around 1445 BC. It really doesn't matter if this date is correct or not. What it does show is a lot of verbal heritage is involved before it is put to papyrus. Even though it's been demonstrated that the oral passage of knowledge when dealing with the Bible was pretty accurate. However, the tone of the verses could drift a bit. Let's again use the Chabad.org version of the verses and take a moment to think about what is actually being said. Let's take the numbering of the verses out of the equation. They are arbitrary numbering anyway.
Genesis, Bereshit. In the beginning of God's creation of the heavens and the earth, now the earth was astonishingly empty, and the darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the water. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God separated between light and between darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And it was evening, and it was morning, one day.
Before I started looking things over, I did not realize there is commentary of events before the start of day one. Then it slowly dawned on me that things may not be what I originally thought. Let's have it read in the manner that I now see these verses.
In the beginning of God's creation of the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was astonishingly empty, and the darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the water.
I believe this is where day one actually started.
And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light that it was good. And God separated between the light and between the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And it was evening, and it was morning, one day.
It looks like, to me, that a whole bunch of activity is left out, but hinted at. Could there have been a previous attempt by God to get things started, and then by circumstances or by the hand of God, the slate was wiped clean, so God started over? Look at it again. It could be that the universe and our earth were in place before the start of the first day. In other words, Carl Sagan's billions and billions could have passed before the clock started running for day one. If this was true, then the rock of Earth could be 6 billion years old, and the universe could be 11 to 14 billion years old, or whatever favorite number for the age of the universe is spouted by scientists this week. Genesis says something happened before day one. This is what matters to us.
And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light that it was good. And God separated between the light and between the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And it was evening, and it was morning, one day.
Just let it bubble in the back of your mind for a while. I do not have any proof that this is true, but I also believe that if we allow for Kentucky windage with the dates of things, that these differences come together, and we are being told that there was a time before day one, and a time from the beginning of day one to today. I have never felt there was a true conflict between science and the Bible, only a lack of understanding. Whatever you think about God, faith, and the Bible, there is a degree of relevancy that is far beyond what most people think that is revealed within these pages. In my several readings of the Bible, my little tiny steps have taken me a long way from my beginning of my journey, but in comparison to what is needed in order to complete my understanding is far beyond my time left on this earth. I believe there is more interaction between all things on this planet, and instead of trying to bring things together in a comprehensive understanding, we are pigeonholing everything into separate compartments with barriers that make it impossible to bring harmony to our understanding. If you have a Bible, bring it out, and I invite you to do your own research, even though I have no proof about whether there is a before day one and an after day one. To me, this takes away the conflict about time that stands between the Bible and science. Before I leave, I wish to thank Icy Rhodes for the use of his tonsils for the scripture readings. Thank you, Chuck. Well, this is the old farmer, Scott Boehm. Be well.